Hey guys, welcome back to Bake Me Happy. This week we made a black forest cake. Now this is my absolute favourite kind of cake and I made it for a class party for my end of year celebration with my home group and everybody loved it. It was absolutely wonderful for sharing and yeah, my teacher even thought it was store-bought. So we'll get into the video. I started by making 4 dense, rich chocolate cakes. You can add some sort of spirit to this if you have a recipe of a spirited chocolate cake, but I decided to leave that out since I was taking this to school. So I made 4 cakes. That was just the amount that my batter was able to make. They were 4 6-inch round cakes, but if you wanted to make larger ones or smaller ones, that's totally fine. I then put them in the oven and let them cool completely. I then whipped 600 ml of heavy whipping cream. I used the entire bottle. I did end up using pretty much most of this, including the piping that I did on top of the cake. So it's best to make more than you actually need because I don't know about you, but my family will always use up a bit of extra whipped cream. So we whipped that up and then I took my chocolate that I'd kept in the freezer. Now if you're using like a home brand kind of chocolate or a compound chocolate, it is best if you freeze it and then shave it after it's been cold for quite some time because then you'll get the real kind of curls that you want of the chocolate instead of just straight kind of shards of chocolate, which is what I found when I did it when it was still kind of at room temperature. So I shaved the chocolate and then my cakes were completely cool. I removed them from the cake tin and then I started my assembly. So I took some of my whipped cream and I put it onto my cake board. I got a 6-inch round cake board. It was probably a little bit small, but I didn't want it to be protruding outside because I knew I had to transport it. So I put my first layer on and then covered it with some whipped cream just on the top of the cake, and then I took some jam. I used a fruit of the forest flavoured jam, but if you want to use cherry jam, that would probably be a little bit more appropriate. Or if you just prefer strawberry or raspberry jam and that's what you have on hand, by all means use that because it tastes pretty much the same. So I spread that out on top of the cake. It doesn't have to be perfect and there was no measurement for this. I just kind of spread it as I thought I needed it. And then I took the next layer and did exactly the same. Cream and then jam and then another layer of cake. At this point, I did decide that it was probably a little bit tall and that was going to be quite a lot for my class to eat, given that there were only 20 or so of us. So I left it at this and it was getting a little bit wobbly. If you were going to make it taller and add that extra 4th layer that I did make, I would have added some dowels just to support it and a bit of cardboard or something in between just to make sure that the cake wasn't collapsing because I did find it was bulging a little bit at the sides at this point anyway. So I let that set off for a little bit to let the cream firm up and then I went around and did a crumb coat. I did a really thin to start off with and then decided later on that I wanted to make it thicker just in case the chocolate shavings that we were going to put on the side let some of the cake show through because I didn't want that at all. So I spread that out quite thick, but I did have a lot of whipped cream left over and that was totally fine because we were going to use it for the top of the cake. So I then just took my chocolate shavings in the palm of my hand and pressed them onto the side of the cake. I went around spinning the plate as I was going and adding the chocolate to the desired, well, I guess, density of what was on the cake. So I wanted it quite thick. That's just because I preferred the look of that, but if you wanted to do a very light sprinkle and not use as much chocolate, then by all means do that. Black Forest is a very traditional cake, but there are a lot of components where you can decide to add less or more or do bigger or smaller in a lot of things. So I cleaned up the edges of the plate and then used that, I put that extra stuff to the side. It was quite small and crumbly, but I was going to keep that for later because I did think I was going to use it. I then took my whipped cream in a piping bag? Maybe we should just call them piping bags. Yes. So I was using a plastic piping tip and it was a large star, which would be about the equivalent of a 1M Wilton piping tip. Now you can use whatever style you like, I just found that this one looked the best. So I piped large kind of rosettes on 12 and 6 o'clock and then 3 and 9 and filled in the other gaps so that I had a total of 8 mounds of whipped cream. I then took some fresh cherries and I put them around the edge, one on each dollop of cream. Then I decided that it kind of was missing something, so I added a sprinkling of those leftover chocolate shavings that I kept, and I knew I kept them for a reason. I sprinkled them into the middle and it kind of completed the cake. So that was it for my Black Forest cake. I really hope that you've enjoyed watching this and that you recreate it because it was absolutely delicious. Ask anybody that ate it. With the leftover cake, we did add the extra leftover cream and the leftover cherries and make a mini Black Forest cake for my family to eat as well. So that was pretty good. If you like what you saw, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and comment what else you'd like to see down below because I'd really love to hear your suggestions. All of my social media you can find just below me here and in the description box. Make sure you click subscribe so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video on Friday, and find my previous video and my next video right here. I'll see you next time.